Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, ICP has surged pretty much almost 100% in the last few days. I mean, absolutely phenomenal, right? If we take it from like roughly the bottom of Wednesday, right? Something like this, boom, and we take it to the top, right? Almost 90%. And to be honest, I'll show you guys a screenshot from where I personally traded to buy ICP because when this big crash happened, right? How most exchanges didn't let us necessarily buy. Some exchanges did let us swap, right? I had a lot of USDC just available, and I say, you know what, ICP, and I got in around I think 526. So I got in somewhere around here. And for me personally, I am up over a 2x. I also did mention it in the private community when it did happen. But look, man, ICP has been going nuts. And I believe the reason for it is because it is in an anomaly situation compared to most other altcoins. Well, not only is this coin good compared to a lot of other altcoins, but the structure itself is kind of an anomaly situation because when we go and look at other cryptos, they're not really having this next level surge. In fact, a lot of them are struggling right now. Radium, right? Radium is still showing zero signs of going up. Myro, right? Same thing, kind of. Jasmy, right? Jasmy, boom, right here. What just happened? Remove drawing, right? Jasmy was kind of in the zone, kind of like ICP was, but it started to sell off. Caspa was in a zone and it started to sell off. Boom, we'll show you like two more. Maybe Ondo, right? Ondo was in a zone, right? Ondo was in a zone and it started to sell off. Okay. But ICP didn't. ICP was in a zone, right? It was in a zone. And, based off the current data, when we were talking about the initial pumps, I was saying, hey, I personally think that we are going to go lower if we do close below this high. And we did, right? We did. And then I wasn't looking at ICP for probably another day or two, to be honest, until just recently. I was like, holy, we are up heavy, right? I saw it and it was at 522. And I was like, damn, that is really, really good. And yeah, when we look at the structure, although we had a little bit of a sell off, we had a lot of consolidation. We had a lot of consolidation here, which usually when you have a lot of consolidation near an area where you need to sell off, usually it does mean that we are not going to be selling off. So why did ICP have this anomaly pump compared to other altcoins? Well, because when we go and look at the total, the whole entire structure for ICP, dude, we literally swept these lows. Like we swept the lowest of the low points for ICP, right? There's nowhere for it to go really lower other than technically zero. But we all know ICP is not going to go to zero. So that is the thing, right? We swept the lows. It's also why when I saw ICP get swept and I had a lot of USDC just chilling there, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put it in ICP because I had the most conviction there. Because, like I said, ICP literally was in no man's land at one point. And we can see, right? This month has been really, really good for ICP so far. Now, yes, granted, we are only just a couple of days in, right? We're only a couple of days in, and a few things could change. But what I really want to see from ICP is to have a strong bullish month. Because if we do, we are going to create some type of nice institutional candle at the bottom. Kind of like the way we have an institutional candle up here at the top, and then when, before we sell off, but it would be in reverse, which would be really, really, really good and healthy signs. Right? From ICP this week, what I really want to see is definitely close above, these 2 points, 450 and 487, because that means we would take out some of the most relevant structure we have over here. Boom, right? We would take us out. It would close very, very nice. Now, does this mean ICP will never come back down? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. But if it does come back down, you probably won't be getting a discount at $2, 250, maybe even like 320, right? You might still get a discount roughly around, you know, 420 to 365. That might be a good zone, right? Where we kind of come back. We do something like this. Let's just say more or less. We do tap in, and then we just eventually do something like this, right? We just kind of go our own way. But I don't really think we're going to come back down to the $3 or back down to the 230s, right? Because the thing is, ICP has surged almost 100%. And at this point, this would be like a 60% crash to come back to the similar lows. Here would be 40%. And although I still think altcoins are probably going to be getting generally wrecked like they have been, right? Because the truth is, they have. I mean, literally, right? All of the altcoins are still kind of going down consistently, right? They're not showing any life. I'm telling you, ICP is literally the only anomaly, right? Even H bar, right? H bar is a fantastic crypto, but it's not really showing too much life right now. Um, AKT, right? Not showing too much life. So that's just the truth, right? A lot of cryptos are not showing love, are not love, life. And even our beloved ZBEC, right? It's not really showing life, but ICP is. And look, Bitcoin is literally selling off right now as we speak, which I'm super excited about because, by the way, I'm in cells. I've been in cells. I called sells personally, even up here, right? Somewhere up here for Bitcoin. And I even called it for H bar. So I'm chilling. I like people dread when the markets bleed. Man, when you know how to leverage trade, you just take a sell and then with that profits you just buy lower. Like I mean, like it's just so beautiful. But yeah, see, so we can see ICP is having a little bit of rejection right now, which is fine, which is really, really fine considering how the markets are. And we just see, like I said, Bitcoin really going down. ICP, the fact that it almost went up 100% while the whole market's bleeding really, really does show that there's strength, that the market makers do want to flip this crypto officially bullish and to start the momentum sooner than later. Now, ultimately, I still believe that the main shift in momentum will be happening in 2026 because we are coming near the end of the yearly candle. And it's very, very rare to see the last 2 months really flip a yearly candle, right? Especially the whole market is generally bearish, right? The whole market is just kind of red. So that's just the truth, right? That is just the truth, right? Like I said, we took out the yearly candle, we took out the lows. When we go to the 6 month, I mean, like literally, we took out every single candle. I mean, we are the bottoms, like we literally are. So we are going to be monitoring things, right? We are going to be monitoring things. Like I said, I do think there's still a chance you might be able to snatch at 350 or 375 at one point. We obviously have to see how everything plays out. I would be really surprised if we come back down to like $2 or 250, considering that we did have this anomaly pump, right? Obviously, like I said, there's still time to go. But yeah, I mean, look, man, I know people were like, saying, haha, look, you thought it's going to go down and went up. But look, man, the thing is, Bitcoin literally just had a similar type of scenario, right? Bitcoin kind of went up. We had a high, right? We had a high for Bitcoin. We had a lower high, and then we sold off. And that's usually what happens literally like 99% of the time, right? That's literally what happens like 99% of the time. But I think it's just the fact that ICP swept the lows. The market makers don't really have too much conviction to be letting ICP go lower. And look, if we talked about it before, right? We talked about it before from an investor standpoint, right? If you're looking to be like an investor, have an investor mindset, buying at these levels, at 327, at $3, even at 287, right? Buying in this general zone was a fantastic purchase, right? And in general, right, when you're looking at ICP and you believe ICP will at least go to $30, $60, potentially $90, right? Buying just in general in this zone, you are chilling. You are chilling if your conviction is higher, right? If your conviction is at least $31, like we talked about, which would be like the most garbage personal result, in my opinion, was just $31. I think we go much higher in the peak of altcoin season. I am very, very convinced that we will go to the 70s and 80s at the bare minimum. That is my personal conviction. But even let's just say we did go to 30s, right? Let's say we did go to 30s and you bought at $9 and you sold roughly at 32. Okay, yeah, sure. It's like 3.6x your money. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but then you still made 3.6x your money, right? You buy at the bottom, right? Let's say you buy somewhere here, kind of like the price is at right now, like $5, and it comes back to like roughly where you go, $32. Okay, you made 6.4 times your money. You bought lower, right? You bought down here, and we go, even if we have like the worst case scenario, you still made 9x your money. And that's exactly what we talked about, right? So, that is why I just pull the trigger when I see very low prices. That's why when I saw ICP right? When I saw ICP like down here and I was able to trade my USDC, I just said screw it. I literally just said screw it. I'm like, we just swept the bottoms, sure, the whole market kind of blew up, but I just knew it's manipulation. And that's the thing, people. That's the thing. That's why, you always have to do your research. You always have to, you know, um, rely on yourself because I'm not a financial advisor or anything, but that's why you just pull the trigger sometimes. For ICP, I've consistently pulled the trigger down here. I've pulled the trigger somewhere over here. And I've even pulled the trigger a little bit over here. So my dollar cost average is looking very, very nice for ICP, right? Even if we slow down the next couple of weeks and we go back down just for a little bit and eventually we start going back up, I don't really care because I'm overall, I mean, I don't know like the literal amount. This nice entry, this fat nice entry I got does definitely carry my dollar cost average down. So let's just say I'm somewhere over here, right between, I don't know, $3 and 390, let's say. I'm chilling. Like I'm literally chilling. Even if, like I said, we have the most dog garbage cycle and altcoin season ever, and we only get to $30, I'll still be looking at roughly an 8 to 9x, right? Because I'm pulling the triggers when we're at objectively low and fantastic prices. Because I'm willing to think like an investor, and that's why I want you guys to think like an investor. When you follow exchanges, when you follow big institutional wallets, whether it's for ICP or other cryptos, you'll notice that sometimes they don't even buy at the best levels, but they're just buying because they think that's just a good enough zone. And sometimes price goes lower and sometimes they buy more, right? And you just have to start thinking like them. And you will avoid these types of issues where you start getting FOMO. If you want to buy now, it's not, obviously, like I said, objectively, it's not a bad time. If you want to wait and be a little bit patient, I do most definitely think that at one point over the next couple of weeks, we will have an opportunity to go back at least to $4, potentially to 350 zone. So it's really, really up to you. You did have an opportunity to be snatching ICP between 290 and 330 for the longest time. At the end of the day, you have to make your own decisions. That is ultimately it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.